channel as well.
Right, we are live. Hopefully from the comments, we'll be able to see if we generally are or whether we're just talking into the void. You know, honestly, it wouldn't matter because you are tremendous company. It's my friend Greg Terry, who's joining us, who's now based in the US, but spends a considerable amount of time, of course, based in Ukraine as well, and has perhaps unmatched, unparalleled experience of traveling all over Ukraine and meeting people who are, let's say, enthusiastic about surviving in the first instance, and very enthusiastic about the fall of the Russian Empire in the second instance. Greg, welcome.
Thank you, Jonathan. It's a joy, and we were gonna make a video, and then a few minutes ago, Jonathan sent me a message. And he goes, "Let's go live."
Let's go live.
I responded back, "Let's go live." And then I responded back, "Well, I'll push it to my channel also, and we'll just have a big party here for an hour or so and get everybody updated. A lot's going on." And thank you for those kind comments. And you may be out there and you go, "Okay, do these people actually know each other?" Yes.
We have met in the real world.
Mr. Feek and I have had a nice dinner together in Kyiv, Ukraine.
With the 69th Sniffing Brigade. So we had a lot of interesting guys.
The only issue with that dinner was we had to sit across from Jonathan M.S. Pierce.
Oh, I mean, terrible. What a bore. I mean, as he sat there,
he just drugged the whole
face. Oh, he drank the bar dry. There wasn't a bite left to eat. No, that's not how it goes down in Ukraine. There is always enough food, always, and it is always spectacular. Well, where do we start? I think you're a little bit more up to the minute than I am. Trump has made some kind of announcements, which I have kind of missed. I'm kind of guessing that, you know, they don't really amount to much and that nothing much has really happened, but he has spewed some words, and it's probably worth just sort of, you know, reprising what's happened there. What did he say?
Well, so let's say this. Earlier today, Vladimir Putin made extremely important statements, and translated them, and Gertis and I did a video analyzing it together. I'm going to your question now, but Putin made one statement today where he says the war in Ukraine and what's happening in Iran and China and the US, he said for the first time, it's all connected. Everything's connected, which we all have been saying for years. So we know right now the pressure is on the war in the war in Israel and Iran. And unfortunately, not in our circles, but mainstream media and others, it's taking away from folks putting their eyeballs on Ukraine, and it's tough there. So everybody's kind of focused on what the United States is going to do. Donald Trump today, after he had given another 2 weeks, 2 weeks is normal. After you've given an ultimatum, surrender, we control the skies, we're going to go eliminate the Ayatollah, we'll give you 2 more weeks. All right, that's what we have. Today,
but this isn't the first time, is it? I mean, he's done this.
He's done this for years.
I saw a video 6 weeks ago. It was 2 weeks, and then another 2 weeks, and another 2 weeks.
Man, I saw a video a couple of weeks ago where he's been doing this for 30 years. Even in business, he would always say, 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, we're going to talk about this deal, even in old clips. So I think it's just him, his weakness. Everything's 2 weeks. But he played golf today, and then he's coming back. He's interviewed there on the tarmac, and he is asked some specific questions, because we know that yesterday he had made reference that it was good that the Iranian foreign minister or delegation was going to travel to Europe. They went to Switzerland. They met with the European foreign ministers of several nations and try to come to an agreement so we could end the missiles flying back and forth between Iran and Israel. Well, that, ladies and gentlemen, ended about an hour ago in complete failure. In fact, I've saw some video on it and was reading on it, and they would not even make eye contact hardly between the Iranian delegation and the European delegation. And Iran said that the absence of nuclear enrichment was non-negotiable. It's over. We're going home. So that basically ended that way. The only thing Iran said that could be referred to as positive is if Israel stops bombing us, then we can talk. And that was it. It's the only positive. So Trump finishing his golf, a 4-minute answer to your 10-second question. He comes back to the tarmac. Reporters are there just minutes ago. He is asked, how did the meeting go in Europe between the European leaders and Iran? Did it help any? And his answer was, quote, no, I knew that wasn't going to work anyway. They only want to talk to us. Okay, that was his answer. But you know, that was his idea yesterday for them to go talk to the European leaders. Okay, so no. And then he was asked, well, is it possible that you have the intelligence wrong? Because Tulsi Gabbard, the national security director for your administration, is saying completely opposite things of you in regard to the true nuclear situation inside Iran. And he says, she's wrong, I'm right. That was it. Excuse me, sir. She's wrong, I'm right. Okay, well, what are we going to do? Israel can keep bombing, and that's it. So this is where we're at on that platform, and it's on a train bound to nowhere right now, buddy.
And you know, Trump is, and I'm not eliciting sympathy from for him here. He is a little bit of a sort of beta guy, and he's surrounded by some fairly tough leaders. Now, many will not like Netanyahu and some of the actions and decisions he's taken over the years, in particular, what seems to be an attempt to erase the population of Gaza in the most brutal fashion, at the same time as tackling the clear terrorist issues that absolutely are there. And, the tunnels under the hospitals, that kind of stuff. I mean, that stuff is not made up. It's there. And the attack on Israel was real as well. But the response seems to be, to use the word disproportionate, I think is no longer adequate to it. But putting that aside, many won't like Netanyahu, but he does come across as tough. He does come across as someone who is prepared to take action for what he sees as the survival of his, not just his political career, but his country as well. And Zelensky, again, a figure who's prepared to take extraordinary tough action and decisions. For instance, the spiderweb operation no doubt would not have taken place without Zelensky's clear affirmation of that. Trump is surrounded by some fairly alpha dogs. He must feel like he has to kind of keep up with the machismo, but as per the comment we saw a minute ago, but all he has is words at this point. Isn't it true? I mean, Europe has no
he's eliminating the machismo.
Yes.
So you're aware. So right now, in regard to Iran, and I saw somebody in the chat say, well, you haven't been in the situation room in the last 3 days. Well, I don't have to be in the situation room when Donald Trump is tweeting every 4 minutes what's happening. And additionally, he wasn't in the situation room either. He's on the golf course today. So we can talk about it all you want, but everything he says, he puts out there for public consumption so that somebody will like him. The bottom line is the most macho one he has around him right now is Pete Hegseth. So Marco Rubio has just crumpled up. It's so disappointing to older school Republicans. He's completely sucked the MAGA bottle dry, so he's gone. Pete Hegseth is completely out of his league, but he's got that
also
macho.
Probably sucking the bottle dry as well.
He's sucking the bottle dry, and but he's the one with the shirt off and the soldier and the tattoos and the defense secretary and all the American flags, and I love my country and my flag, but on the socks, on the drawers, on everything else. But you may or may not be aware of this. I'm sure you are. He's been pushed to the side now in regard to discussions and what will unfold on Iran. Okay, that's the national, that's the Secretary of Defense. So he's pushed off to the side. He's not even in the deep situation room meetings right now. And Tulsi Gabbard has been pushed. She's the other, I mean, like, okay, give me a gun and let me go out and show you how tough I am. Okay. And she is, I mean, but she's pushed off to the side. So it's almost the ones that were having that macho, he's kind of easing them
He's kind
off.
of moving them out.
Yes.
Yeah, don't overshadow me. You know, I'm not going to look good next to these guys. And actually, maybe they're giving him actual information, which he doesn't like. You know, I don't think he likes to be told stuff. He doesn't like to be explained stuff, and he certainly doesn't like it pointed out if he's made a mistake or at any point in the past said something that didn't, you know, come to transpire. I don't know if you saw him in the G7 in Canada. I mean, I can't even imagine what the situation room is like, because, you know, you may be stuck there for hours at a time. You may have to review some fairly complex testimony, information, and intelligence. And, you know, without saying things that are going to inflame the audience, I don't think his brain is quite there to digest huge amounts of complex strategic information. We look at the G7, and after he made a couple of comments about his friend Vlad not being there, which was terribly, terribly sad, he was kind of seen sitting in a corner, not saying anything, taking 40 winks. He's in the room, but is he in the room, if you know what I mean?
Well, A, you're from the UK and I'm from the United States. And I think we're both, you know, it's not like we're just, well, A, I don't curse, but we're not, you know, F-bombs and, you know, we're trying to analyze this respectfully. And I think we're both doing a fair job. But I saw somebody in the chat, general consensus, yeah, he kicked Hegseth out of the room because they don't want him to get in a drunken stupor and text all the information out. That's good, general consensus.
Hey, I've got a group chat going. Here we go.
But go to the G7 now, and it was very sad, to be quite honest. I like to look at body language. I like to listen, and of course, being respectful. Carney, they're out of Canada, and other world leaders. He was supposed to meet with the Australian newly elected leadership, and that didn't happen. He was supposed to meet with Zelensky, and that didn't happen. And he doesn't like Macron. That's obvious.
No.
So that was cold. He's there. He makes his statements. He has the photo op. He drops a folder. Starmer gets down on his knees and picks the papers back up, you know, in kindness. And he has a dinner and he gets on a plane and leaves because he has an emergency. For me personally,
the flagpoles. I mean, which
for me personally, okay. For me personally, Iran was the excuse. He knew good and well that the United States would not be putting the F-35 in the air within the next 24 hours. Now, it may go in the air tonight. It may go tomorrow. It may go Sunday. I don't know. But I will say this. If the United States does attack, I do believe it'll be this weekend because it's before the stock market opens to digest the information. Just out there on my possible thought lines. But there's a multiplicity of reasons. I personally believe that Donald Trump is a marketer. He's not a negotiator. He's a bully. He has tyrannical ambitions. I'm not sure if he has the mindset to be a tyrant, but he sure has the desire. He admires people like Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping and Kim Jong-un. He's been caught on the hot mic, you know, admiring, oh, I like it how the Kim Jong-un people stand up at his attention. And that's what I want around here. And, you know, just take it for what it is. That's what he said. Now, we don't have to extrapolate into depth of meaning for that, but that's what he said. But specifically in regard to the G7, there's no question in my mind that he had zero desire to see Vladimir Zelensky. Why? Because Vladimir was coming to make a deal to buy arms from the United States to fight against Russia. And that would just turn him on his head, because the one he kicked out that now has no cards, that pulled off one of the greatest military operations in warfare history, now comes and sits there and goes, hey, forget all of that. Let's make a deal. Let me talk your language. Let me buy $50 billion worth of arms for you. You can send them through Europe. They can pay the money. We'll pass it through. He didn't want that. Macron also, with his little surprise visit to Greenland, ruffled the feathers of Donald Trump.
Quite intentionally. I mean, that
no
really,
question.
yeah.
No question. And then we had this breaking emergency, and you know what, guys, I'm gonna have dinner and I got to get back to DC. I got to get to that Situation Room. Well, it's 2 a.m. and he's on the plane giving interviews. And you ask, well, how do you know it's 2 a.m? Because I could see the clock when he leaned out and he was talking to people in Air Force One. You can see right there the time and the location where the plane is going. Really good OPSEC for the President of the United States. All right. Now, what really bugs me is he does go to some meeting, maybe. I wasn't with him. But the next morning, he's putting 2 flagpoles up. And it is a full show. The greatest construction workers on the planet are coming to install the flagpole. Jonathan, you don't see this stuff maybe, but it's in American media. The greatest, only the best. And it's so funny. You start having a little fun with him here, like on the nighttime talk shows. One of the guys in the excavator, he's up in there just sleeping, like, typical. It's just normal people. And I saw
some clips. It looked a little bit like, the Village People or something.
It was. So he's going through that whole process, and we come out of the key leader of the G7, the President of the United States. I didn't say Donald Trump. The key leader of the G7, the President of the United States, who in this case happens to be Donald Trump, has an emergency that he has to leave, come all the way back to DC. And in just a few hours later, he's managing a construction job on the front and the back lawns of the White House, installing flagpoles. And then when reporters are asking him, this is what got so good for me. He was then being asked about Russia, Ukraine, and Iran. And behind him were the construction workers. And listen, I do construction work. There's nothing about construction workers. My trade that I learned, I was a ceramic tile installer coming through out of high school and into college. And but he just turned to a guy, and the guy's like in a yellow shirt, and he's leaning on a shovel, and he's behind Trump, and Trump's talking about, yeah, we're going to have to maybe bomb Iran. And he turns to the construction guy goes, ain't that right? The guy goes, yeah. Like, okay, you went from your national security advisor and the inner circle and people around the world. You're asking John, who's holding the shovel. Come on, man. We have problems that this is not a joke. A lot of people are dying and a lot of people are being killed. You made reference to the Gaza, and I appreciate that, Jonathan, because you know what? There are terroristic cells in Gaza and in Lebanon and everywhere in the world. And there are tunnels, and there's cache of weapons, and there's terroristic activities. And there was October 7th. But I completely agree with you. I agree that Israel has the right to defend itself and to defend and to eliminate those that did that heinous assault on Israel. But to literally turn Gaza to dust is not the right answer. To kill civilians indiscriminately. And they'll say, well, that's a terrorist there in the green shirt. Okay. I mean, I know your intelligence is good, Mossad, but it's probably not that good because you just launched a tank shell in the middle of 50 people. So that I hate that part. I hate it with a passion. Can't we do better than that?
It's not strategically smart either, or at least if you were minded at all to allow that territory to at some point be rebuilt, then it's an awful, terrible strategy. If, however, what you want to do is to fully ethnically cleanse that territory, eradicate it, wipe it from the map, then, the actions would fit better with that kind of strategy. We don't know what really Netanyahu is going to do. Maybe he doesn't know himself what he's going to do at this point.
Today, my morning video, Benjamin Netanyahu spoke very clearly. He was interviewed last night on the news there as well. Last night he was speaking in Hebrew, and I translated it late and put it out. And the reporter, she goes, well, what are you going to do next? And they're in Hebrew, and it's really fun. He has a dramatic pause, and he goes, that's a good question. I'm not going to tell you, because I'm not going to give the strategy away that we're doing to defend our homeland, but we're going to finish what we started. And today, he made the very exact same statement. We're going to finish what we started. And today, I don't think people may understand how strong the Iranian missile system is. They're good, guys. You can say, okay, well, Israel is shooting out 90%, or now it's down to 85% or whatever. But Iran is incrementally adjusting the way they're targeting. They have not only, yes, they've killed civilians, they've hit hospitals, they hit a school today. Sounds like Russia, right? They hit the diamond exchange in the center of Tel Aviv. It looks, I mean, it's serious damage, billions of dollars. They've taken out infrastructure in Haifa. They've taken out port infrastructure. They took out the power plant in Haifa. They've hit some targets like that as well. But don't think for a minute that Iran is weak, because who gave them the Shahed? Who gave Russia the Shahed technology to start? It was Iran. They do have good technology, especially in rocket development and in drone development. And Israel even states it. They go, they're good. They're good, and we're not underestimating them. And we have to finish this, because now we're in a war now. They're hitting indiscriminately targets as we are. And today, Netanyahu saying, no, we're going all the way. We will not finish until they have zero possibility of nuclear capability.
And I think once the logic of attacks at this scale sort of kick in, then actually you can sort of understand Netanyahu's position. I mean, do you want to leave your enemy half-armed and belligerent and absolutely mad on revenge? The safest course, strategically, of course, is to carry on until, as I guess Israel thinks, the regime can be toppled. This becomes kind of quite interesting, because it's been, regime change has been something of a taboo.
Mm-hmm.
We have seen 3 years of full-scale war against Ukraine, and not a single, as far as I can tell, not a single mainstream Western politician or analyst has wanted to really get into the subject of regime change, or even contemplate any actions that might bring about, including contemplating any kind of victory for Ukraine, even on their own territory. The best they can come up with is, Ukraine survives and more or less, limps on in the state it currently is, in probably a state of forever war with Russia. That is the best that Western politicians have to offer. Regime change and the topic of assassination that's also come up, because that's what I'm just been scripting an episode on today. It seems that through Israel's actions, and indeed through the success of the intelligence services of both Ukraine and Israel, it's starting to show that these incredibly audacious attacks can actually work and deliver incredible results. They're starting to show that targeted assassination of military personnel especially, it can be both justified in the context of war, but it also can be delivered with extreme success, both physical and psychological success. So they're starting to break the taboo, I think, behind assassination. I wonder whether these actions are going to start breaking the taboo behind regime change as well, because if that's the case, and of course, remember Syria also, the fears people had, you can't, if you topple Assad, something worse will come along. Well, guess what? It's not worse. In fact, at the moment, it's infinitely better than Assad. And It doesn't resemble the chaos that followed in Libya after Western intervention, and it doesn't resemble the chaos in Iraq following intervention. It's a new scenario, and one which gives some degree of hope. You know, one day you had torture prisons, the next day you had people being released. That's starting to change, maybe not the full mindset, but it's showing that some of our conceptions that the situation following regime change is guaranteed to be worse. No, it's not. Can we apply that to Putin? Are you
saying you're expecting a regime change in Iran?
It's not guaranteed by any means. And in fact, I think it'd be rather difficult to achieve, but it is not entirely impossible.
Are you aware of what Vladimir Putin said today through his official spokesperson, Dmitry Peskov, in regard to regime change?
Yeah. Regime change, and they talked about assassination as well. These would be seen as incredibly escalatory. But of course,
that's correct.
Russia's red lines. We're back to Russia's red lines. You know,
Russia would
can they physically do about it?
I think I had it on my earlier video. Russia would view this as a very negative event. I think that's the word they used, or something of that. Peskov made that statement, and this would definitely be a setback in regard to, you know, global stability. So that's what we've heard from Russia. I'll tell you what, I will be surprised if there's not a regime change. I think that is the ultimate goal of Israel. I know for a fact it is the ultimate goal of the president of Israel.
I think so, yeah.
Netanyahu,
I think he's minded to carry on until it happens.
Netanyahu has not stated it. In fact, Netanyahu corrected the president and said, please don't make, and it was 2 days ago, please don't make those statements like that. And you say, well, how does the prime minister correct the president? They have a different government situation there. So, but today, the president of Israel point blank said, the enemy has come to my nation. The enemy wants to kill my children. The enemy is throwing missiles at my houses. And this has happened far too long, and we are done with it. And the only way to end this is by their complete defeat. And then the reporter asked, so does this mean that you are supportive of a regime change? And this is today, guys, today, regime change in Iran. And his reply was, how can you defeat the snake if you don't take off the head of the snake? So there's no question in my mind, if Israel is green lighted, and they were just green lighted within the last hour to continue as is now. It could change tomorrow. I don't know, but Trump green lighted them within the last hour. Keep going. If Israel continues with their plan and it is unhindered by outside forces, they will find him and they will take him out. They have proven it through what they have done. The world has witnessed it. Whether you agree, like, don't like, it's still a fact. They locate these leaders, and there are certain of them they have taken out by literally putting a drone in a shell through the wall into their bed and took them out while they were sleeping. So they do know. They know where Khomeini is. There's no question they know where Khomeini is. I'm sure the United States knows where Khomeini is, and they're sharing. So we shall see. But
then then there's a couple of questions. There's quite a few comments here, which I tend to agree with, which is that you can cut the head off the snake, but does the regime just pop up another head, another one as you cut them off? If there's no, let's say, local support for what's going on, then you might end up in that situation of snakehead after snakehead. But if there is a strong foundation of local support for change, deep and broad support, and there's some suggestion that there may be, we've seen outbreaks of protest in Iran over the last couple of years, some of it extraordinarily bold, infinitely bolder than anything seen anywhere in Russia. And it seems to have more breadth and more depth and actually more history to it as well, because many people, even in their sort of family circumstances, will have some folk memory of what it was like before the revolution. The revolution wasn't 100 years ago. It was within the lifetime of people who could pass that sort of folk memory, family memory on. So I actually think that there are some chances, perhaps, of sort of ground up movement. And of course, if you decapitate the snake, then yeah, I don't know where that analogy is going, but it makes it that much easier for a popular upswell to sweep across the regime.
I completely agree with you. And I can tell you from the work I do, there is a extremely large, millions of underground movement in Iran who wants a new life. The underground missionary work of Christianity, Catholicism, I can even lump Mormonism into it. I'm just talking about not Islamic Muslim movement, but the underground Christian work in Iran is massive. And I know this from firsthand, speaking to Iranians who have escaped, came out, told their stories, tells what's going on all over that country. And that's just one segment of the population. But it's significant. We also know that the son of the former Shah was speaking, and he stated openly, don't be afraid. We've already got a 100-day plan. There will not be a vacuum. Stand up for Iran. Stand up against this regime. Trust us. We're going for it. So as well as I know, there's a lot of things that are happening behind the scenes in regard to that we're not privy to. But if it comes down to it, this is the difference that I see just geopolitically in regard to the world right now, especially if we're talking about the war in Ukraine and we're talking about the war between Israel and Iran. We're talking about China, which we haven't even mentioned, but they're so big behind the scene and coming more prominent to the scene. The madness of Kim Jong-un, and you can laugh at him all you want, but his weaponry and technology is killing Ukrainians every day. It's a fact. And they've got a lot of it, and they're nuclear, and he's bonkers. Okay. And they have the largest standing army in the world. So don't, no. I've even heard my Ukrainian buddies who have fought against the North Koreans say they're pretty good. They're pretty good. So don't minimize that stuff. But when you look at Vladimir Putin, he's all in. He's not worried about an election. He's not worried about what's going to happen in 5 years. He's all in right now. Xi Jinping is all in right now. He doesn't care about elections. He's not thinking about 10 years from now. Rocket Boy is in for life unless something happens. He's the supreme being, dictator, deity-like of North Korea. He's in. You're talking about a lot of stuff, a lot of equipment, a lot of people, a lot of manpower, a lot of technology. The Ayatollah Khamenei, and I think it's actually Ayatollah Khamenei.
He's all in. I mean, they've had
100% all in
sanctions in the world prior to Russia. So
for him to be martyred, I'm heading to 72 virgins. And it was nice for Mertzy. I saw Mertzy back in the chat. Sorry, but Mertzy's a volunteer, been helping in Ukraine. I haven't seen him around in a few weeks. Wanted to make sure he's all right. Big shout out to Mertzy there. But Mertzy said, yes, 72 virgins. So the Ayatollah, he's loving it. I'm all in. I'm all in. What is the president of the United States doing? He's putting out advertisements that he's going to be 40. He was 45 and 47. And with the last 24 hours, he's put out truths that he's going to be 48 again. Here we go. So he's only in till 2029. So I don't think they comprehend that over here. Honestly, I really believe that this is not 1985 anymore, 1965. We live in a different world. And I don't think that our leadership currently in Washington, D.C. understands that they are elected for a few years and these dictators are all in and they don't care about elections. They're all focused on the end goal. They don't care about loss of life. They don't care about anything, getting to their goal. That's the huge difference I see. And that's why I really believe Israel's not going to stop till they take him out.
I think that's absolutely the case. I mean, Israel has some of the institutions of a democracy. Whether it fully acts as a democracy is that will cause endless debate in the chat. But I think what we fail to recognize is these dictators are not just all in. They want to see our so-called democratic values, the club that we have built, that more or less has enforced those values and tried to, promulgate those values around the world. They know that we were in the ascendancy. They know that the public discourse was largely in the post-war period around these rules and values that we built in. We benefited hugely from them, and we believed we were on an inevitable path for the whole world to align with those. I think we kidded ourselves for decades that countries around the world had bought into that in the way that we bought into it. But when we're in the ascendancy, many went along with it. Now we're seeing the authoritarians boldly say, not only do we not want to be part of that order that you created, that we don't give a damn about your rules. We want to take the bits that we like and we want to reject the rest. And the more extreme end, like Putin, actively wants to tear it down, destroy it, remove it. He's happy for us to play with those rules in a kind of playpen as long as we have no power at all. That is his goal. It is entirely the definition of zero sum. We've been playing what we thought was a kind of win-win game through the globalization period. But unfortunately, we didn't realize that the big chunks of the world play to entirely different rules or no rules at all. And it seems we're still sleepwalking through this sort of imagined world of the inevitability of human rights, the inevitability of freedom of belief, the freedom of association and expression, the freedom to navigate the world's oceans, to make and trade and remove barriers. All of this stuff is not just under threat. It is being dismantled left, right, and center. The question is how far. Not do they want to go, I think that's quite clear, but how far can they go, especially given that Russia has turned out to be, let's say, kinetically far weaker than we thought. In the information and hybrid war space, it is rather more effective, perhaps, than we judged. In the traditional kinetic space, rather less effective, albeit against Ukraine. And I don't mean that as, oh, it's only Ukraine. I mean, as in, Ukraine now has the first or second best army in the world, and we don't have that scale and intensity of experience or the sheer number of people in uniform with those skills and experiences.
There's one thing to, for example, there's one thing to play with drones on the military base and in war games.
Or hold them up above your head and walk down the mall.
Or hold it right here. And my buddies in Ukraine, everybody was trolling that, by the way. But there's another thing to have that technology in live situation for years. And that's not only for Ukraine, but it's also for Russia as well. I can tell you right now, I'm reading the news out of Persia, and we've got some more statements from the foreign minister, Rakchi. His name is Arakchi, the foreign minister of Iran. And this all connects. Vladimir Putin said it perfectly today. It's all connected. Now, I do agree with him on that. It's all connected. But Iran, the foreign minister just stating a few minutes ago that it's clear now that the United States used the ploy of talks to create a cover so that Israel could begin their assault against us. Therefore, it will be very difficult to trust the United States moving ahead with any type of conversations. And then Foreign Ministry Department of Iran is saying that they are attempting to schedule a meeting on June the 23rd in Moscow with Vladimir Putin. So we've gone from meeting with the EU today to the attempt to schedule a meeting with Putin in 3 days. That makes complete sense, actually.
It is extraordinary. And this whole environment allows a lot of weird speculation and propaganda to be kicked up. And one of the weirder ones is just being spurred by a comment in the in the comments that are going up, saying that the British, who are excuse the language here, the British who the Russians term main bastards, and think that we are behind every nefarious plot in the world. If only Britain had that kind of power and influence. This is one of the weirdest stories, and I thought the comment didn't relate to anything I recognized, so I thought maybe it's made up stuff. But no, there is a story in a sort of rather strange little propagandistic sort of online thing called the Eurasian Times. That sounds like a sort of Moscow front website. And here is one of those bizarre plots. The UK is planning to torpedo a US warship in the Baltic Sea and in cahoots with Ukraine, so it can then accuse Russia of doing that to upset Trump. I mean, absolutely bonkers stuff. But when you read these in what looks to be like a Russian propaganda site, it makes you think, oh, hang on a second, is Russia about to torpedo one of its own warships so it can blame it or torpedo? Are they about to torpedo something? Maybe they'll think a US ship is maybe too much of a risk. I know, let's torpedo one of our own ships and blame the British for it. This kind of weird stuff is the kind of froth that we have to wade through in these crazy times.
Just my personal opinion here, is we all have to remember, and if you do not know this, it's much more than we think, but there is a very large population of Russians in Iran working at all of these nuclear facilities. The Russians are helping them, and not only that, the main nuclear power plant that is actually generating power down on the port, it's staffed with thousands of Russians in that infrastructure system. They're working with the Iranians. So you talk about false flags or strike your own, or I don't think it's going to even take that. I think it's just going to take something hitting the wrong place. And even Putin was talking about that today. It's all fresh in my mind. And it's not like I'm glorifying what Putin is saying, guys, but today he made 55 minutes worth of comments. I mean, at least they were complete sentences. It's much more than we get out of the White House, where we can listen to and analyze. And of course, I know that half of what he says is lying, but you still have to listen to it. It's Vladimir Putin, and then see where it fits in. But there's going to be a lot of narratives in play if Iran continues to be struck by these massive Israeli assaults. And additionally, if the United States gets involved, and when I see things like, okay, well, the foreign minister of Iran is going to Putin on the 23rd, so that's what, Monday? Will the United States go ahead and kick in before then? There's just so many things at play. And here's what
they can do. They're not without cards. So we also know that the Houthis are very much trained by, supported by Russia/Iran.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if they were minded to try and close down the Straits of Hormuz, of course it would damage Iran and its exports, but it would have two knock-on effects. It would really seriously spike the global price of oil. That would damage the US economy. It would damage Trump's political standing, no doubt, because he stood on a platform of reducing prices for ordinary working Americans and consumers. That would be a terrible blow to that policy, but it means that money would flood in to the Russian exchequer. So it may well be
100%
that they can
agree.
come to a deal about this. You know, Iran, okay, we're going to back up a bit more, but look, it's going to mean seriously disrupting the global flow of oil. But
100% agree.
we're outcasts. We can move the world further to a grey fleet market, and this will further degrade. You know, if we're all in, as we agreed they are, then this move becomes less of a risk. It becomes more of a very smart strategic ploy to strike back. I get to comment on that, but then before we sort of jump off, I also wanted to get a comment on this comment that Putin's come out of. Now, we've known right from the start that this war has genocidal characteristics. Putin has pretty much come out and whether he realized he's admitting that or not, he's come out and said that we are the same. Ukraine and Russia, we are the same, and we are going to take it all. We're going to have it all. And these comments were echoed by Peskov as well. Peskov said, look, we're not going to negotiate when we're incrementally taking territory. You know, we're in the ascendancy. We're not going to negotiate anything away. So these are the two things. They're all in, and they're all in for all of Ukraine.
I analyzed all of that earlier. Let's see here, right here. I think this is the one. Yeah, I'll put it into your queue there, Jonathan, if you'll hit play on that.
Yes.
You spoke about the regions in Ukraine that we consider ours. I have already said many times that I consider the Russian and Ukrainian people to be one people in reality. In this sense, all of Ukraine is ours. There you go. And, you know, now people look at, oh, well, he's just, you know, he's speaking metaphorically. No, this is how they do it. It's inch by inch and step by step. And what I was going to say, and to some, you were talking about the Strait of Hormuz, and if that gets mined, the one that benefits the most from that is Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin and his war effort, not only in Ukraine, but his machines around the world that are running. Additionally, it also, okay, this is why it's so important. Like today, I focused on that Putin stuff, got it all out. I want to keep eyes on Ukraine. And Jonathan, it's really our job and others to do that, because now in mainstream media, there's nothing. It's all Iran. It's all Israel. And I mean, rightfully so. We're on the edge of World War III and a nuclear potential tactical nuke they're talking about over here on Fox News, legitimately on news platforms here. Not that Fox is legitimate. I'm saying they're legitimately talking about it on the news. Can you believe we're talking about dropping a tactical nuke on a uranium enrichment facility in the middle of Iran? But this is where we're at. Putin's sitting back in Moscow going, I'm loving every bit of this, man. Okay, money. And then he's saying, yeah, everybody watch Tehran over here. Watch Tehran. Here I come, Sumi. Because he said it today.
Yeah.
We you know, we're creating a barrier and a buffer, but you know, if we need to get Sumi, we'll get Sumi. I mean, that's just that's how he talks. And openly saying it in the St. Petersburg Global Economic Forum, which, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, was attended by many Americans and many international people. In fact, it was yesterday.
How they rubbed along with the Taliban, you know.
Yes,
that is
dissonant. Oh, they love the Taliban. They take them on all the tours and they're showing them around. But yesterday I was putting out video with Dmitriev and the Chamber of Commerce, American Chamber of Commerce there in Moscow. His name is Robert Agee. He never left. I mean, he's just pumping it up and loving it. Everything's great here, wearing his little red and white and blue neck collars. And hey, the greatest days are yet to come. No mention of anything Russia's doing. And all of this just benefits Putin. So that's one of the things you need to watch, because there's a lot of smoke and mirrors going on right now. And unfortunately, it's tough. It's very, very tough in Ukraine right now on the front line, guys. Extremely tough. And in Iran, missiles are dropping. In Israel, missiles are dropping. In Gaza, artillery and bombs are dropping. It's just ugly.
And
And
these guys are not just all in, they're prepared to wait. They're prepared to outweigh their Democratic counterparts. They're prepared to wait until elections go in their favor. They're quite happy to attrit and attrit and attrit because they think in the long term things are going their way. In the short term, we look at it rationally, saying this makes no sense. And they're destroying their own economies, their own societies. They're destroying their soft power and, in some senses, their hard power as well. It makes no sense to us. Therefore, we assume that it's not going to be successful. That, unfortunately, is a terrible assumption. And certainly it should not be used, as it is being used, as an excuse not to rearm, an excuse not to protect ourselves, an excuse not to massively ramp up our own military preparations, get those production lines going on various factories, get things like Taurus to Ukraine. We should be using every opportunity to help Ukraine to be able to attrit Russian supply lines, logistics, production facilities, because like a virulent bacteria, we've used a half dose of antibiotics. We've used half the dose and taken the antibiotics for half the course, thinking, well, you know what, it's going to work. No, it just makes our opponent more virulent, more malicious, and more toxic. And unfortunately, we're not trying to imagine the worst case scenario. The worst case scenario is that North Korea sends in tens of thousands of engineers to help construct more and more drones.
I've been holding off on that.
Well,
I've been holding off on that because I like to confirm things 3 times, but you're accurate.
This is
so thank you for saying that. North Korea is sending up to 25,000 people into Russia, specialists to produce Shaheds. And even Ukraine intelligence. And I saw John Hoover in the chat. He's a volunteer and working there in Ukraine. A great guy. I also saw Kim Jong-un in my chat. So we'd like to welcome the dictator of North Korea. Kim Jong-un is in the chat. But a lot of good chat going. I'm trying to keep an eye on it here. But the reality is,
I mean, this shows there's a lot of stuff they can still throw into this, and they think they can out-attrit us, or Ukraine at least.
Correct. And Ukrainian intelligence over the last 3 or 4 days that I follow, there's a lot of it out there, but there's 3 or 4 guys that I follow that are very accurate, in addition to the soldiers I talk to. And then my partner, Zhenya, who's nonstop on the front and all that. So I feel our information is as accurate as possible, and we always want to be as accurate as possible. But you've seen in general the number of Shaheds go up that they are sending. A lot of the damage now, and I know it was a missile that took out the 9-story building, even though Vladimir Putin said that was a military target. But take that off, that's what they always say. But it was a missile that took that one down. The actual missile went all the way through all 9 floors and detonated in the basement. That's a fact. Terrible. They're improving everything, and Ukraine is as well. So I'm not glorifying it. We're just telling you the facts. But the problem is right now, and John was talking about in the chat, Andrew Scully, let me know if there's a Russian spy in the White House as reported. Jonathan,
this is the HR or recruitment officer.
Jonathan M.S. Pierce, ATP Geopolitics. I saw right before we went live, did a video on that just a few minutes ago. Go check that one out. I don't know anything about that yet. But
I did want to report that one because that one seems, I mean, it's very speculative, but at the same time, kind of odd. It is definitely odd.
Well, Mr. Pierce is good at finding those connections. I'll tell you that. But I'm concerned, to be quite honest, at the amount of Shaheds, and we can start winding it down here, that everybody's all in, and Russia is having success with these Shaheds, guys. They're making them faster. They're carrying heavier payloads. They're onboarding AI. They're bumping off of Ukrainian cell phone, internet, you name it. Ukraine is using the same technology. Ukraine did an amazing special operation inside Russia that took 18 months planning to take out those airplanes, and they still have more operations planned. And I know for a fact of new drone technology coming to the battlefield this fall. I've already seen it with my eyeballs, and it will be a game changer what Ukraine is bringing to the battlefield this fall. But Russia will be doing the same. They both getting better. But my concern is, like you said, volume. And there are a lot of Shaheds. It would start off 50 Shaheds a night. Next thing you know, there's 100 Shaheds tonight. And Ukraine was 2.5 years ago. Oh my gosh, 100. Now it's nothing for us to talk about 300.
300 to 400. And
yeah.
they're
And
clearly
now
got the intention to get that up to 1,000 nightly. Yeah.
To 1,000, that's the goal. And
That's
you say,
the goal.
Can they have that many? If the war keeps going, yeah.
I mean, the other challenge is that, North Korean artillery was really hopeless kind of quality. And of course, they were getting through a sort of backlog of stuff that may have been quite old and poorly built. Their missiles had an atrocious accuracy range. But here again, you're seeing a clear alignment between authoritarian states. Russia has sent engineers, many hundreds, possibly thousands of engineers, to improve artillery factories and to improve the accuracy of their rocketry. So not only are you seeing not only are you seeing North Korea becoming a far more involved, you're seeing it become more dangerous adversary by going all in with Russia. Russia gets what it needs, which is scale of production and very cheap production resources and materials, but it can bring a certain level of quality and accuracy to that. So we're seeing a dramatic increase in the malignancy and capability of the authoritarian alliance, and we're seeing a much slower waking up of Europe. And I started to go to a lot more conferences and stuff like that this year. And there are voices that say similar things, but it's chatter, and everyone goes off. And
there's a lot of chatter.
Rinse and repeat.
There's a lot of chatter. There's a lot of rinse and repeat. And we can focus it now on Ukraine while they're fighting for their very existence, and valiantly, heroically, led by President Zelensky, who 24/7 all around the world, leading and representing his nation like a true champion. And they fight on and they fight on. And do they get frustrated? I had to take a call this week from Ukraine, and they were beyond frustrated. They're extremely frustrated after the G7 when Donald Trump left and did not meet Zelensky and other European leaders. They were very frustrated at the way the relationship is so warm to Vladimir Putin, but from Donald Trump. And it is obvious. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to know it. He hates Vladimir Zelensky. He hates him. And I'm not speaking for him, but you can see
clear antipathy.
It's clear.
There's no question.
And
shared by
at the minimum, we can say he
loafing.
prefers overwhelmingly Vladimir Putin to Vladimir Zelensky. So we could say that, okay, if you want to be as accurate as possible. But it's so obvious, and it's disappointing to them.
Yeah.
They're fighting for everything and promises and promises. And now with the Middle East boiling, we have to stay hammered down, guys. We have to stay hammer down, sharing truth, helping. Let me do this, Jonathan, because I can see it on my back end too. Dunk on you. Thank you for the $20. Hello, everyone. Promise to be a great stream. Dunk gifting 10 memberships there. One of my mods. Thank you so much. John Woolcock gifting 20 memberships. Thank you. Adam Rounds gifting 5 memberships. B Lady Apparary, welcome. Crew member. Nice to see you again. It was nice to see Mertzy again. Adam Rounds, engineer. Yeah, Adam's a stud. I think Trump being weak is with Ukraine is what got this going. I completely agree with you. Not only this, lots of other things unfolding in the world. Dunk on you gifting another 20 memberships. Photograph, 11 quid. Trump will not be visiting Margotten in the Netherlands. I saw your email. Correct. during his NATO visit. Margrotten, excuse me, is an American cemetery where approximately 8,000 fallen Americans are laid to rest. And Josh Earhart, member 1 month crew member, dropping the Ukrainian on me, Yakayu Grigori, Budlaska. So he said, thank you, Greg. And I told him in Ukrainian, you're welcome. I don't know, John, I think we're going to be talking a lot more, man, because this is, it's like I'm leaving now, going with my wife and we're taking my mother-in-law to the drugstore, to the pharmacy, because there's one going out of business here, Rite Aid for you Americans, and they got everything marked down. So grandmother wants to go and look around and shop around. So, but I will tell you, in my route driving to the pharmacy there, or the drugstore, gas is up. The eggs I bought this week are up. So I don't know. I don't think any promises are being fulfilled anywhere right now.
No one's getting what they asked for Christmas. No one.
Right. Nobody.
Everyone's getting a lump of coal. That's what it
Everybody's
feels like
getting
right
a lump
now.
of coal. But hey, we fight on, and I still believe the best is yet to come. And Jonathan, what I see is when, you know, you and I on some political issues, we view things differently, philosophically on a few things, religiously. But man, look at us. We in here and we agree on so much, and it makes us like so cohesive and powerful. And when we accentuate the things that we agree on, then you can work on the things and come to understanding on the things you may disagree on. And that's what makes humans. It's the way
have
life
an
should be.
enjoyable, respectful, robust conversation about the other stuff.
This is why it aggravates me. It's why, Jonathan? Donald Trump.
We'll come on to this in another conversation.
We will, but I want to say something here. We had a big victory last night against Gavin Newsom in the Court of Appeals with respect to Los Angeles. We saved Los Angeles by having the military go in. Okay. First of all, I don't care what your political affiliation is. If you were so disrespectful and hateful that you can't even call the governor of a state by their proper name, you are a piece of trash, sir. Secondly, evidently, Donald, you spent too much time in New York and haven't spent much time in Los Angeles. It is a ginormous city that I have spent a lot of time in, lived almost 9 years in California. I don't know what you saved, but you didn't save Los Angeles. There were some protests that for the most part were peaceful. And all you did was show your weakness. But please, I don't prefer Gavin Newsom either, but his name is Newsom, not Newscum. Thank you. I hate it, Jonathan. I hate it with a passion. I don't like Gavin Newsom, but I would never disrespect the man. That's what I don't get. The hatred. It's
this
disgusting.
Is the thing, isn't it? I mean,
and that's an American talking, man. So I know you probably have a different view as a Brit, but I'm sitting there going, okay, I don't like Gavin either. It's not my style, but man, don't disrespect the guy. You know, it's not sleepy Joe Biden. It's the former president of the United States. You're the one sleeping and falling down the steps going up Air Force One as well, you Cheeto. You know what? It's probably time for me to go to the drugstore because you got the pastor about to start ripping Cheetos.
You're about to let
it just frustrates me, man.
I'm here for that. I'm here for that.
It just frustrates me so much.
I think we saw that after the election here, which was in stark contrast. And I think it wound a few people up, but at the same time, it felt, so you had the outgoing government and some of their policies were loathed by many people. And they're responsible for an awful lot of incompetence. And there's no question, and venality and some terrible contracts with friends, especially during COVID, terrible, terrible record, lots and lots of scandals. They lost the election comprehensively. They made no claims about not losing it. They followed the rules and they handed everything over. they wouldn't want to have gone, but they took the result. And then when the parliament was reconvened, you saw them shaking hands and chatting with their opponents. Now, these people won't agree on anything. They won't agree on anything, and they can be very impassioned about it, but they can be civil to each other outside of the political discourse. And they're not going to be best buddies down the pub, you know, drinking. But I think we need to try and return to something like that. There is no issue so burning that you know, you may want to slander, strike, or worse, your opponent. I mean, that's we got to move on from that.
The bottom line is, it just shows weakness. And we have a commercial here. I think it's for a antiperspirant. I don't know which one, Degree or Dial or something. I don't know. Maybe Degree. When life turns up the heat, that'll never let them see you sweat. You know, or something of that nature. I don't know. I'm not quoting it right, but you know, you nailed it perfectly. And we'll do our best to lead by example and affect who we can affect. So thank you, Jonathan. Thank you to everybody on the live tonight.
And in Ukraine. It's super.
You got that right, buddy. For those of you that are watching on my channel, make sure you go give a subscription over there at Jonathan Fink's Silicon Curtain. The best interviews coming out nonstop. His Silicon Bites and analysis nonstop. And plus you get to listen to that smooth British accent. You come here to me, you listen to a redneck, and I put a little Southern drawl on it sometimes, but thank you guys. And Jonathan, appreciate you and look forward to more to come. We'll have to get the other JP in here the other Jonathan in here next time so we can make fun of him.
No, well, we certainly have to do that. He's a rich source.
And Gertis treated me as well. I messaged him. I said, man, we're going to talk a little bit. Hop in here. He goes, oh, I would love to, but I'm at Walmart. I said, okay, well, you're not getting out of there. So we'll get our full roundtable here soon.
Yeah.
All right,
we're getting Darren back on next week. We'll get the old gang together.
That'll be great.
We'll do more of these because I think
that'll be great. We need to.
Definitely worthwhile.
No question, especially as we go forward. So
good luck at the drugstore. Hope you get some bargains there. Hope the mother-in-law really managed to fill that basket up with some tremendous bargains.
She'll be happy. She'll be happy as anything. She's 81 years old and early stages of dementia, but she's still okay. But my wife takes care of her full time, and she's up there waiting for me now. My studio's downstairs, so she's upstairs going, all right, I'm ready to go look at the deals.
Get them before.
All right, guys, y'all have a good night. See you, Mr. Finks. Yeah, cheers.